All right, the first vocabulary term is persistence of vision, the retention of a visual image for a short period of time after the removal of the stimulus that produced it, the phenomenon that produces illusion of movement when viewing motion pictures. Like we've talked about all year, video is a bunch of still images that move by very quickly, and your brain will retain and hold that image briefly in order to continue on and connect to the next image that ends up showing up after the first one disappears. We also demonstrated this with the thaumatropes that we've made, the digital thaumatropes that we did with the GIF makers, where they switch back and forth between the two images. So, for instance, we talked about the example of like the bird drawn by itself, the cage drawn by itself, and then it spins or it changes really quickly. And then by that way you can see it creates the illusion of the bird being in the cage because of this idea of persistence of vision. Practical effects. A special effect that is created live on the set of a film using real-world objects. The art of practical effects has really kind of faded in recent times, and CGI has been relied upon for everything. But a practical effect is any kind of special effect that is physical. It is in real space there on the set. So anytime you have a real explosion, real blood maybe on a person, or for instance, a big change was Yoda from Star Wars was originally a puppet, but now he's computer generated. So, and they even in the prequels, they originally used a puppet in Episode 1, and then in later releases of that same film on DVD, they changed it to CGI, and they did the computer graphics on top of it. So, practical effect, any real life physical effect that would be used in a movie. CGI, computer generated images, or computer generated imagery. Digital graphics used in visual media, often in the form of 3D animation. So one of the earliest times that CGI was used effectively was in the film Terminator 2. You can see a picture of that down in the bottom right there, the guy who has the hole in the face. This was done really well, and they created like this liquid metal that would change back into the form of the person. And so that was one of the first times CGI was used effectively and used to that extent in a film. It had been used previous to that, but not in the same manner that it was in Terminator 2, and not for the length of time that it was in Terminator 2. And today it's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. So you have all the different, if you need a monster nowadays, you are going with CGI. Some kind of monster or alien, for the most part, you're going CGI. They, in the last couple years, there's been this trend of kind of trying to go back to practical effects because the films that do it the best are the ones that integrate CGI and practical effects together, depending on the situation. So one of the best films that still holds up today is Jurassic Park, and they used a bunch of different techniques. They used puppets, they used animatronics, and they used CGI. And it all holds up really well because they use the best technique for the different types of shots. If you had a close-up, they used physical models. If you had long distance shots where the animals were moving in the distance, the dinosaurs were moving in the distance, then they used the CGI, and it doesn't look as fake from that distance. So they got a really good look for the original Jurassic Park film. Matte shot. You guys learned a little bit about this when we did the Ed puzzle about the history of green screens. It's a shot in which parts of the background and sometimes the foreground are masked so that different background, foreground images, etc., can be substituted during painting. So here is, on the bottom left there, is the technique where the camera shoots through a piece of glass, and the scene that they want to show up, the extra background that's not actually there, is painted on the glass to make it look like it's there. Or you can cover certain areas in black, hence the matte black, and the name of the shot, matte shot, covered in a matte black, and then on the film, fill in that black space with whatever it is that you want to be in there. Chroma key, a visual effects post-production technique for compositing, layering two images or video streams together based on color hues, chroma range. The technique has been used heavily in many films to remove background from subject of a photo or video. So used very frequently and heavily in modern films. It saves money by not having to actually go to location to shoot. So you can just do it all in the studio and then just put whatever background world you want in there digitally. And then you can see it every day on the news whenever the newscaster is showing the news and the map shows up behind them and they point out to where the weather is. That's using the green screen or the chroma key process. Animatronic, the use of technology connected with the use of electronics to animate puppets or other figures as for motion pictures. So like we talked about, the Jurassic Park used this technique, and they even created probably the biggest one that's ever been used with the T-Rex. And you can see that on the left, and it was a robot that could be controlled and moved by robotics. And then like on the right over there, you see a film from the 1976 King Kong film. They didn't use stop motion like the original 1933 King Kong. They used a person in a suit, and then for the close-ups with the girl in the hands of the gorilla, they used the animatronic arms, as you can see there. And then down there at the bottom, you see what used to be the characters that were in Chuck E. Cheese. Well, not Chuck E. Cheese, but Chuck E. Cheese had a sister company called Showbiz Pizza that eventually all turned into Chuck E. Cheese's. And they had this really cool animatronic show, and that was the band that was there. All right, next one, Squib. A miniature explosive device used in a wide range of industries, from special effects to military applications. They can be filled with fake blood to simulate gunshot wound. So a little pack of fake blood, or it could even be real animal blood, that has some kind of like mini explosive that is attached to the actor's body, and it'll explode to create the effect of a gunshot and the blood exploding or bursting out of the person. So a lot of times nowadays, if you want to do a gun effect with person bleeding, it's done by CGI, and computer graphics create the image of the blood shooting out. But squibs was traditionally how it's done. And like I said, the whole idea of practical effects, a squib is an actual effect that's there on the set, also like the animatronics. And so it falls under the category of a practical effect. And this is starting to come back now. There's some films that tend to prefer to do the actual squib to the CGI. An animatic. An animatic is a preliminary version of a movie produced by shooting successive sections of a storyboard and adding a soundtrack. So an animatic is basically a motion-based storyboard. It's like a moving version of a storyboard that doesn't go necessarily all out for the film. It can be done in an animation. It can be done in a stop-motion animation, or it can just be done in like a walkthrough with actors that's not the real thing. Then it's not the actual official film. Miniature effect, a special effects created for motion pictures and television programs using scale models. Scale models are often combined with high-speed photography and matte shots to make gravitational and other effects appear convincing to the viewer. So if you want to blow up a large building or have a giant monster destroy a city, one of the best ways to do that is to make small models of those buildings or small models of those